Okay, so now we talked about the depreciation. We talked about the depreciation. Now, remember, so we're just going to isolate that $35,000 and put that in a bucket next to the 2,100 times 12 that we would be making every month, because that's 700. Remember, our mortgage payment is 17 something. So we're calling it 1,800. We're charging the tenant 2,500. So we're making 700 a month times 3 rental houses. Okay, so now let's put all of that to the side and we just have a clean kitchen countertop, and we're going to talk about appreciation. Okay, because the property appreciation doesn't have anything to do with the depreciation or the rental overage that I'm getting. It is just the natural appreciation of property. So, you know what? Really, all of us in real estate on this call know is it's been anything but natural over the last year and a half, right? Because it's such a seller's market, and just like you said, Belinda, I mean, you're having to overpay for stuff, and things have gone up a lot more than only 4%. However, going through 2 recessions personally as a real estate investor. Okay, so I went through it in 1997, 8, 9. Let's see, 1998, 99, 2000, 2001, and then went through the next one in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I mean, this is in the rear view mirror, and what I'm saying to you is it still works. Okay, it still works. So you might say, well, oh my God, Michele, but what if I had purchased a property in 2005, which was, right before it started going down? Okay, well, then guess what? Then maybe for the next 5 years would not be a good time for you to sell that property if it hasn't gone up in value. I mean, just so what? People are, we just have to keep our focus on the fact that someone is living in it and paying off the mortgage. And there is going to come a day, and I do not mean 30 years from now, that the property is going to go up, and you're going to be able to, if you have 10, there's going to be 1 or 2 that hit big. I think about when I'm buying 10 properties right now. When I buy those, I want them to be not all in the same subdivision for sure. I don't even like having them like on the same street, because don't think about playing roulette as red and black, because that's just 50-50 chance, right? And you can just keep putting it on red until finally you get the money back. But you're never going to make the big money, right? The big money is when you put it on the numbers. So if we bought 1 in Roswell, 1 in Marietta, 1 in Woodstock, 1 in Ball Ground, 1 in Dawsonville, I mean, that's just like close to where I live. So those are kind of spread out areas for me. If I was going to just be picking up houses here, I would buy a new house in Dawsonville. I would do an Airbnb in Kennesaw. After listening to the story from the last class of the parents, I mean, that she's like booked out for 3 months with a rental house, well, previously known as a rental house, now is an Airbnb house, and how much these people are making. I mean, y'all just not going to believe it. And it is very exciting, and everybody should get a piece of that action. But my point is that over time, I believe that 4% is definitely not over exaggerating what we could expect property value to do. Okay, so now we're isolating this. So remember, the depreciation is over on the other counter right now, and we're just looking at the appreciation of our 1 rental house first. So remember, it was $300,000, and so y'all, if anybody looked at my house that I went under contract for yesterday, you probably saw when the seller bought it. He bought it like a year and a few months ago for $350 and is selling it to me for $480. Okay, so sometimes it's not 4%. So sometimes it's ridiculous, and it's 30%. But the thing is, if we just said that over time that we thought our properties would appreciate on average, when it's averaged out at 4% a year, I don't think that that's a stretch. So 10 years at 4% a year, when you're looking, at 5 years, it's 360, 10 years is 420. And then think about if we go back to what we have at 20 years, but then what if you had 10 of these? I love multiplication when it comes to this kind of multiplying. So if you had 3 rental properties 5 years from now, okay, 5 years from now, then those 3 would each be increasing, if we went by the 4% rule, $60,000. So it'd be $180,000. 3 rentals. Okay, so listen, somebody, Tim, you asked, you go, oh my gosh, how do you have time to do this? Okay. And the big thing, sincerely, is to learn to scrutinize and pick good tenants. I mean, and don't be afraid and don't hate yourself and say, oh, I hate being a landlord, I'm selling the house. If you just pick a bad one, you just picked a bad tenant. So what? Move on, get them out and just get somebody else in. I mean, that's how we become better at anything that we do is practice. So same scenario, 3 houses times 60,000 in appreciation is 180,000. Now, y'all, depreciation, we can see a lot more because we're actually going to get a tax refund if we were W-2 and it was already taken out of our check, or if we're 1099 and the depreciation is just money that we would never have to pay to the government because you wouldn't owe the same amount. So either way, you can feel the depreciation, you can feel the rental overage because you're putting it in your bank account. But you know what we can't feel until we sell the house is appreciation. We can, it's fun to look, and say, oh my gosh, look what our house is worth. But unless you're going to do something with it, really, it's just that delayed gratification and feeling really good about yourself and feeling really responsible, knowing that you could sell your house and get an extra $100,000 right now if you needed it. But I mean, unless you just found out that you have a terminal disease or, and you want long-term care and long-term redundant income every month, then you just have to feel good about your choice of house, leave it in there and just say, wow, look how much I have. Because you know what's going to happen if you get 10 houses, then you could comfortably pick 2 or 3 that went big, and when they do go big, if you sell 2 or 3 and pay off the other 7, now you have 7 houses that are paid off. And y'all, and it's only like, listen to this. That guy that just made that. So what did he pay? I think he paid around 350. And so I'm paying 480. So if you took off the real estate commission, so let's just say, so he made $100,000 in 1 year. Okay. 100. What if he had 7 of those? Then he would have made $700,000. And so if you're worried about the time and you're trying to say, oh my gosh, what if the tenants are high maintenance or whatever? Think about this. 3 rentals. Okay, let's say that each rental, which I've never had a rental take this long. Okay, I mean, even in the turnkey of my own time, but let's just say, to exaggerate so that there's no way you can walk away without saying, I have to do this and get started and get a plan going, is let's just say that each of your 3 rentals took you 20 hours a year, okay, of time. Now, I mean, think about 20 hours, even though, yes, that's less than 1 24-hour day, but that means that you are actually working and spending 20 actual hours on each of your houses. So that'd be 60 hours a year. Okay, well, 60 is also the number of the appreciation of your houses, right? And so if you looked at it as opposed to saying, oh, I hate being a landlord, if you looked at it a different and accurate way, okay, of saying, you know what, I just got paid $1,000 an hour to spend that 20 hours working on that house. It's still worth it. I'm not selling that house, right? I mean, and here's the thing. What if you only had to spend 5 hours? What if you spent 9? Y'all, I've had tenants for 7 years before. 7 years. They didn't move. I never went over there. I mean, we would, if something was wrong, they would just have it fixed, take it off the rent. I mean, it's just, All right, are you ready to put some numbers together? Y'all, you know I'm going to be calling somebody out that says they're not jumping in after this, okay? So I'm just playing. Okay, so the true return on investment. So the true ROI with 3 rental properties for $300,000 each. Okay, if you made $100,000 a year income over 5 years. So y'all, to make this so extreme, so that seriously, I just don't know how someone is going to say they're not going to jump into this. Look what I put for rental monthly overage. 0. Okay, so in this example, that really means that, it's $300,000 houses, right? Your mortgage payment $1,800, your rent $2,500. So does everyone know where I'm getting these numbers? So it's $700 when the tenant pays you $2,500, and then you pay your mortgage for, let's just call it $1,800. You have $700 left in your account, in your bank account. Okay, times 3 because there's 3 houses, so it's $2,100 a month. I left that off of this example. I left it off because if somebody wants to say, oh, but I had to replace 2 air conditioners, I had to replace the roof. Okay, then you use that $2,100 a month, because I can tell what could you possibly spend $2,100 a month on to repair in a house? Okay, because you're getting 2,100 times 12 months. This fear, of jumping in is just saying, oh my gosh, what if somebody doesn't pay? What if I've got 2 months where they don't pay? Y'all, so what? If you've got, that's why I say get 3, do not get 1, because then all your eggs in one basket. If you have 3 rentals and all 3 of them are paying you $2,500 and your mortgage payment is around $1,800, then guess what happens if one person, you have to go through eviction and you don't get paid for 2 months? Well, the other 2 are both paying you $700 plus $700 that you got left over. Your mortgage payment is only $1,800. So you've got $1,400 of it from the other 2 tenants. That's why the numbers matter in this. I mean, I want you to have 10, but I mean, if you just say, well, I mean, I'm definitely not just going out and buying 10 houses, but could you just start with 3? Because when you look at these numbers, even taking that $2,100 away so that no one can be afraid of repairs, okay? Just look at the depreciation over 5 years that you saved. This is how much more money that you got to hold in your hand because you were depreciating those 3 rental properties over a 5-year period. Now, I don't know about you, but I think $64,000 is a lot of money. I mean, because that's actually mine that I get to spend, or what I'm going to do with it is buy 5 more houses. But I mean, I'm just saying, whatever you're doing with it, or maybe you could use it to pay off your houses. Use the depreciation to pay one off if you want to, because that's the goal. So really, when you're looking at this, the appreciation over the 5 years for the 3 rental properties at just a 4% average, definitely not what the person that just sold me the house made. Y'all, I mean, look how much money. This is $250,000 for just buying 3 rental houses. And just remember, y'all, I'm not even asking you to be your agent. You are an agent. I have nothing to gain by you getting rental houses except just being happy for you and celebrating with you and feeling happy that you're changing the life in your family, and that you're one step toward retirement, of not needing to get up and working because you want to, not because you have to. So now look at the 10 rental house example. So y'all, I've used the same price throughout this whole thing to make it easy. $300,000 homes. The last slide had the fact that we had 3 of them. This one says that we had 10 of them, but you remember that we bought the first one with only $2,250 was what we had in it. So when you might just look at this and you've never really thought about owning 10 houses, you've never thought of yourself as a landlord, you never even knew it was possible. And then you come to class today and say, holy cow, I mean, I could totally do this. And then you start doing it. And then just all of a sudden, one of your houses hit big, or they start you building a Walmart down the street from it or whatever. And then all of a sudden your house, like the person that just sold me that house, is worth over $100,000 more. It's so hard sometimes not to just sell it and take the money and just go spend it. But what we're talking about is you not relying on anybody, just you and God in your retirement. You know what I mean? Where you just know, who cares what happens to Social Security? Seriously, like, you know what if you're not close to it and you're thinking, dude, what if it's gone when I get there? Hey, well, who cares? Because you won't need it if you've got 10 houses paid off and you're getting rental income from them. So look at what happens, 10 rental properties 10 years from now. So right now it's 2022. It's 2022. So we're talking about 2032. And so, just think about 2012, what you were doing, and now look at it's 2022. And the thing is nobody's asking you to change your life, to change your weekly activities, to change your Christmas holiday schedule. The, landlording has nothing to do with any of that. So how on earth could it be possible that 10 years from now that you could have 1,530,910 extra dollars? I certainly didn't know all this when I started. I mean, it's just learning it as I went. And I think now, I just think, my gosh, y'all, why don't they teach this in high school? Okay. And I don't even mean like I'm saying today, which is I want everybody to jump in. I'm just saying making kids aware in high school that this is even possible. You know what I mean? It's like, where is that training? Yeah, really. So how many rental properties do you want when you're looking at what 10 do and what 3 do? Because you know what you'll find, and listen, y'all, I can't speak to this because I only have one child. So I don't want to pretend to be an expert in an area that I don't have this experience. But you know what I've heard, because if you have one child, and I've been a single mom a long time, and the thing is, when I hear people have 4 or 5 kids, I'm like, oh my God, like, are you okay? Like, I mean, do you just need a massage? I mean, can I do anything to help or whatever? Because I just think, gosh, my responsibility times 5. But you know what parents that have multiple kids say is just, actually, it's easier. And then they start entertaining themselves. So having one can actually be more, take more time than having 3 or 4. So to that, I say the same about rental houses. Okay. Once you get them rolling, okay, then whether you had 10 or you had 3, if you spent 40 hours a year or 100 hours a year on 3, you may also spend 100 hours a year on 10. That's my point. So I put this up here for all of the naysayers that are not speaking up, but are still questioning whether you're jumping in, so that you can go to irs.gov so that you can see publication 946 on how to depreciate property, so that you can see everything that I just said is in line with what you're about to read on the actual irs.gov website. So there's some validation. And so y'all, I'm surprised nobody brought this up, but we're going to jump into it. And it is depreciation recapture. So you would be right to say, like that number that we just looked at, but what was it? 393,000 for the 10 houses. Okay, here's the thing. Yes, we get to write that depreciation off, that 8727 for our $300,000 houses for each one of them. We get to write that off of our house every year and get more money or keep more money, either get a larger refund check if we're on W-2, or pay less money if we're 1099. So, however, when we sell the property, then we have to recapture. Okay, that's the big term, is we have to recapture the depreciation that we have written off whatever number of the 27.5 years that we have done. So let me tell you the blessing and the curse about recapture. So y'all, when people say, how did you decide which houses you were going to sell? Okay. And so I told you some of them, like I definitely sold that one because one, I was, buying different stuff, or I just want to pay something off so I'd be done because I love being done. And so here's the thing. When a property that's been depreciated is sold, capital gains are recaptured on the depreciated basis. So here's the news. What if you've been writing depreciation off? So you have been enjoying all of this 8727, 8727. I'm getting all that money back every year. You see how much money in 5 years, 10 years, and then the market goes down. Go with me. All right. So remember the people that may not have spoken up and said, well, oh my gosh, Michele, but my story really is one that would stop everyone here from investing, because it's not. But I got caught in 2008, 9 or 10, and the market went down and my property value went down. And so I let it go back to the bank. Okay. So number one, why? Okay, people still needed to rent houses. I was renting houses back then. So, I mean, people still needed to rent houses. It does not matter if your property goes down in value, but can I tell you what's beautiful if it does? If you were thinking about selling a property, okay, because you have written off. So let's say that $300,000 property, remember, we're writing off, 300 times the 80 is the 280, it's the 8727 that we're writing off every year. So let's say let's just focus on one house. If we had a house for 10 years, so we've been writing off $8,700, every year. So of course, what does that mean in 10 years? That it's going to be 80,000, right? So now the house that I bought for $300,000, y'all, if I sell that property and I do not do a 1031 tax-free exchange, which we're going to look at next, because you can totally do that and not pay taxes on it yet. It's just pushing the tax thing down the road. However, what if the person that thinks that their story is going to be bad enough that I would change my mind and tell everyone I no longer think investing is a good idea? Here's the thing. If your property went down in value and you really wanted to sell something, which one do you think that you should sell in a down market when the price has actually gone down? Wouldn't you say the one that you've depreciated the most? Because now when you sell it, there is no recapture of it, because the recapture. So if we said, look, can we just call the 8727, let's just say that we had the house for 2 or 3, or let's say 5 years, and so let's just say 5 times 9, $45,000 that we wrote off. And I understand that's ish, it's not exact, but $45,000. So we bought it for 300. We've written off 45,000 in a few years, and then we're going to sell the property for any reason. Maybe your kids are going to college and you don't want to use the $700 a month for that, but whatever reason, you're going to sell it. All right. If the property is worth 320 or 350, it doesn't matter. You pick a number. When you sell that property 3 years later, okay, if you're, or let's say 5 years, so that we can use the 45,000 that we wrote off. So is everyone follow me? Where the 45,000 is the depreciation, 8727. We're rounding it up to 9,000 a year that we're getting to write off of our taxes, and we're going to do it for 5 years. So we're going to call that $45,000, meaning that we bought the house for 300. We have written it off. So our recaptured amount, okay, of the house is right now, it is 255, because we took $45,000 off. So anything that I get for this house, because it's an investment house, over 255, I'm going to have to pay capital gains tax on. Look, I did the disclaimer, since I am not a CPA, of course, just your friendly investor, but rules do change for 1031 tax free exchange. And I just wanted to share with you how they change so that you'll know. You can find all of this at irs.gov. They will give the case law in there if something changes. They'll give an example. And remember how case law has to the only case law that can change the IRS rules and regulations is if the IRS says that they're going to audit someone, okay, and then they say, oh, you owe us, $100,000, whatever, and then the person challenges it to the what is it the Supreme Court? I think it is with the IRS, and then so it's overturned. So the IRS said that they owed it based on this reason, and then this person challenged it for a legit reason, and then that person won. Those are the ways that even though you used to be able to do 1031 like this with it, if a case happens like that, then it can change in a year. So that's the reason that I throw that out there. Just be aware that it can change. Just don't look at this, y'all. I mean, by the way, it was thrown up in the air and being discussed if they were going to allow depreciation anymore. I mean, even though it's been around, for the 35 years that I've been doing it. But did you know that, let's say that house, that's $300,000, and Terry, you're 100% right. We definitely want to keep it. But I'm just using worst case scenarios for people. You know what I mean? Even if it goes down, you still won because of the depreciation and the monthly rental that you got. But anyway, okay, so when you 1031 tax-free exchange a property, let's say that instead of that property, you getting less for it, let's say that you wanted to sell it because you were because your last child just went into the 10th grade, and you're thinking that in a few years you and your spouse would like to have a condo on the beach, okay, in Florida. So did you know that you could sell your house, okay, or whatever has a lot of equity in it, and purchase through a 1031 tax-free exchange? And it has specific rules, which we're going to look at a few of them, but you can sell it, y'all. You can sell it, and you can never touch the money because there has to be a third party. So like if Wiseman was your closing attorney, then you would have to have a different attorney be an intermediary. There are just intermediary companies, but just please know that way back in the day, gosh, it's been a long time now, but like 35 years ago, there were companies that actually took off with that money during that first recession back in 2000s. But anyway, the intermediary holds the money, and you don't get any from the closing. So let's just say that you made $200,000 on that $300,000 house. You sold it for $500,000. Okay, that $200,000, either A, you can have it and you can pay capital gains on it, or you can take up to 45 days once that property closes and identify up to 5 properties, and you have to buy one of those. I mean, you can buy more than one, but I mean, you have to, you can't add more in there after that 45 days. So when I've done 1031 tax-free exchanges, guess what I do? I push off my closing until I already know what I want to buy, because you're the seller in the 1031 usually, because I mean, as a buyer, nobody cares if you're doing a 1031. I mean, all that is just money. You know what I mean? Like the seller doesn't care where it's coming from. But when you're the seller, you don't want to close until you know what you're doing with the money. So if I'm still looking for a property, then sometimes, I've pushed off a closing just so I would definitely know what I was doing with it. But just remember, if you are doing a 1031 tax-free exchange, that you have to write in the contract, all parties acknowledge that the sale of this property is part of a 1031 tax-free exchange. You have to write that sentence. You've got to fill out the proper paperwork for the intermediary. I still suggest an attorney. As a matter of fact, I'd probably close somewhere else and have Wiseman be the intermediary, just so they're trustworthy and we know it. Any funds received from the sale of a 1030 of a property that's in a 1031 tax-free exchange is called boot. So if you are selling your property for 500,000 and you decided that you deserved to have a new car because you got your property's paid off and you're living on 20 grand a month before you wake up in the morning, and you say, I deserve one. If you take $50,000, so you only put 150 into the 1031 account for the intermediary, that 50 that you took out for your car will be capital gains.